Welcome back to another GCN Tech clinic, and yes, the eyes aren't deceiving you. It's Hank and Manon with you this week.
Yes, we're going to do our very best to answer some of your burning tech questions that you've been leaving under our videos using the hashtag #GCNTech. And remember, if you do have any questions you want answering, tech-related, that is, make sure to drop them down in that comment section below and we'll do our very best to answer them.
Yeah, we've had a load of questions actually this week going through them, and I think, Manon, you're in waiting to kick off with our first question.
Let's kick off with the first question. Is in from Duncan. Hi GCN Tech, I've recently invested in a power meter to enhance my training outdoors. When testing this while on my indoor trainer, I've noticed that the new power meter is generally around 5 to 8% higher than the one on the trainer indoors. Perhaps it's due to drivetrain insufficiencies. Is there a way to match both power meters to one another?
It's a good question, actually, and a lot of people actually have the same problem because a load of different power meters can read differently, can't
they? It is very common to see a difference, but 5 to 8%, that's quite high. I wouldn't say they're normally that much, but I would recommend trying to calibrate the power meters, both of them, and reset them and see if that makes a difference. But if all else fails, you might just have to do some quick maths because I don't believe there is another way around that.
Yeah, a lot of people actually tend to calibrate their power meters every single day, and actually different temperature can actually change the calibration. So make sure you calibrate, maybe reset, and then see how you get on. But if, yeah, like Manon says, if nothing changes, then the best thing to do is just do some quick maths and then you'll get your number.
Yeah.
Next question is from a long-time fan, actually, from Cycling Nerd. Exactly what product is Ollie using to maximise hair coolness? I did actually ask Ollie the question, and he said behind me, there's the product, and this is it.
Apparently he puts that on his hair. Works a treat for him, apparently.
So, on that note, I think I could do with a bit of it.
Oh, just look just like Ollie.
Yeah. Hair looking a bit cooler?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. Definitely. Right, next question is in from Zente. Hi, Alex, Ollie and Manon. I'm going to add Hank in there, just so you don't left out. I'm curious about how do you fly with a bike on an aeroplane? This is a good question if you haven't seen how it's done before. But basically, we use a massive suitcase. It's designed specifically for a bike. It can be a hard shell case or a soft shell case, and yeah, there's lots of different ways of using them. Sometimes you have to disassemble your bike a little bit, take the wheels out, the handlebars, and I would always recommend taking off the derailleur because mine's bent a few times in transit.
Not the derailleur, but more the hanger.
Yeah, more the hanger.
And also a lot of people actually tend to fly with a spare hanger just in case. But like Manon says, the best thing to do is actually remove the derailleur and actually put it in between the forks or the rear stays. That way it's nice and protected. But there's a whole different way, like Manon says, to pack your bike. And if you want to go and not spend a whole lot of money on those hard cases, you can actually just use a box from a bike shop that you can get recycled. Yeah. And that way you just pack it with a load of bubble wrap and a load of foam. But piping is the biggest thing I would say to maybe get hold of, because that way you can protect all that tubing. That's definitely something you do not want to get damaged or ruined in travel. But it's funny, when traveling with a bike, because everyone looks at what you're carrying,
some looks,
and they think you're carting around a small donkey.
Yeah, someone said if I had a piano in there.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can also hire the bike boxes as well if you are just having one trip away, maybe a year, and you're not going to use a bike box again. So that's a good option. And if you're not that confident in disassembling your bike, you can get ones that you just have to take the wheels off and then you plonk the bike in. So they could be easier.
But one thing I would say before we move on to the next question is make sure you take your pedals off. The best thing I would say is taking off your pedals so they don't damage your wheels that sit beside your bike. And also another top tip is maybe to take off the handlebars. That way your handlebars won't get damaged.
I actually I didn't take my handlebars off for one trip. I got back, unpacked my bike, went out on a ride, got on the drops, and the handlebars had cracked.
There you go.
Next question is in from Jessica Ryan. Hey guys, hope you're doing well. I'm facing a problem with my crank arm. Every time I tighten the bolt, it loosens every few kilometers. I have tried a thread lock, but that doesn't work. Please may help me solve the problem. Well, unfortunately, you haven't told us what cranks you have, so that would have helped us give you some better advice.
Yeah, because a lot of cranks tend to attach slightly differently. But what I would suggest you do is you find out what torque it is, and then you get the right tightness, because ultimately then you know what the factory.
Yeah, and most cranks will have the torque, how tight you need to do it stamped onto it. So make sure you look that up and.
Yeah, almost all cranks have their torque stamped on.
Yeah, it'll be quite small, so you might need to have a look.
Torque wrench is needed, and if you keep having the issue, well, send us in what cranks
send us in another question, and Alex will answer it.
Yeah. Right, we've got another question in from Paul, who says, any good ideas on how to recycle, repurpose old bike tyres? Great idea, and I think this is so important because we don't
want them in the landfill.
Yeah, we're going into a world that environment's very important.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly that. And so what do you do with your old tyres? Best thing you can do is actually go back to your bike shop, because some of them will actually have schemes so they can recycle those bike tyres. Or if they're not really that used, maybe why don't you just ask a friend? See if they need a spare bike tyre. We all need spare bike tyres, and sometimes you don't wear them totally into the ground.
Yeah, if you're not upgrading them because they're being worn out, or you just fancy a new set, you can, give them even to a local cycling club. They might be in need of some new tyres, so ask around. But there's also places that make like wallets and key chains out of old tyres, so maybe there's something like that around you, or can try making your own.
Yeah, but I do love that question, and we want to advise everyone to try and recycle as much as possible.
Definitely. Next one is in from Michael. Hi guys, what would cause my shoe to rub against the crank? Now,
I have this.
I have this as well, and it's very common, and it's not anything really to worry about, but it is basically because of where your shoe sits on your cleat. It'll be maybe slightly facing in towards the crank, and I wouldn't go changing your cleat position just because your foot is rubbing against the crank. Yeah, that's going to cause more problems than it's worth.
It's all about the float. So depending on how much float you have within your cleat position will depend on how close you are to that crank. But it kind of is how you pedal. So if you pedal with your heel going slightly inwards and maybe touching the crank, that's kind of how you're going to. And if you change that, it's going to will give you knee damages and everything else because it's all co-aligned. So one thing I would say is if you do want to slightly move out from that crank, is make sure you do it in really small areas, just because you don't want to make too big changes straight out the block, especially in regards to your cleat position.
And another thing you could do, if it is really annoying, you could get like transparent, clear tape that you could put over the crank, and then that'll give an extra layer to stop any rubbing against the crank. That'll help protect it.
I think Alex actually has sleepless nights over this.
Yeah, Alex does hate this problem, but it doesn't really bother me.
It doesn't bother me too. No, I'd actually prefer to kind of like pedal well and fast, then look after my crank.
The other way around, yeah. Well, that's the end of the tech clinic for today. But make sure, if you have any questions, drop them down in that comment section below using the hashtag #GCNTech.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I hope to be back asking all your questions. So make sure you get your questions in, and we'll answer them as fast as we can. Hey.
Yes. See you next week.